welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. Coming up on today's show, we'll be chatting with John Ramdian and Robin Black as Bellator makes a wonderful addition to their light heavyweight roster. We have a main event for July the 12th, and Conor McGregor isn't limiting his verbal targets to the world of MMA. Bellator announced on Wednesday that they have signed light heavyweight Phil Davis to a deal after Mr. Wonderful's contract with the UFC came to an end following his most recent fight with Ryan Bader, where he was defeated this past January. Davis had been fighting for the UFC since 2010 and holds a record of 13-3 with one no contest. A lightweight bout between former champion Benson Henderson and Michael Johnson is expected to headline the TUF 21 finale on Sunday, July the 12th in Florida. Ariel Helwani reports that the fight is close to official, with a venue for the show still needing to be finalized. This would take place 24 hours after the UFC 189 card as part of International Fight Week. Henderson has already fought twice this year, with a decision loss to Donald Cerrone and then submitting Brandon Thatch in February. Johnson has won his last 4 fights, most recently defeating Edson Barbosa by decision. And finally, Conor McGregor continues to get attention wherever he speaks, this time to Esquire magazine. McGregor's latest target is Floyd Mayweather Jr., who he says isn't a specialist because he is an expert in one area, but rather a rookie in 10 other areas, and that the UFC featherweight would, quote, kill him in less than 30 seconds. Now, it's worth noting for you math fans out there that Floyd could make as much as $180 million for this fight with Manny Pacquiao, and that means that Mayweather will make $2.5 million for every 30 seconds of that 12-round fight. And we look ahead to this Saturday's card, and it's going to be headlined by Lyoto Machida and Luke Rockhold, going for 5 rounds at the middleweight division. You can catch all of the action 8 o'clock Eastern in Canada on CTV2. I'm here with John Ramdian and Robin Black. We just heard the quote from Conor McGregor where he said he would need all of 30 seconds to kill Floyd Mayweather Jr. To me, the most interesting part of that story was that the outlet that was speaking to him, Esquire magazine, that alone tells you where Conor McGregor is at.
He's the
and
man.
the kind of interest this guy gets, because he says stuff like this, and all of a sudden we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, he believes it, though. You're inside of a cage, and you tell, if you're Conor McGregor, you tell Floyd, you do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. I'm pretty sure Conor McGregor would beat him in 30 seconds.
We've never seen Floyd's ground game.
Well,
Come on.
Yeah,
we're pretty sure we know how.
I believe Floyd's belly-to-belly suplex is just off the
yeah.
charts. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's just something about the guy. And the thing is, if he was a mediocre fighter, this would be kind of infuriating, you know, but he's really, really, really special good, you know, and it was the same. You're going to make Muhammad Ali comparisons. You're going to make Elvis Presley comparisons. Some people
Not yet. We shouldn't, though. We got to wait
yeah.
to see what happens in this Jose Aldo fight, because, yes, Dustin Poirier is very, very talented, but, you know, maybe the media, the pressure, everything being under the spotlight with this Conor McGregor thing shook his confidence. It depends on how Conor McGregor performs against the guy many people consider the pound-for-pound best.
I do a podcast with David Mullins. It's the mentality of combat sports, and we've been looking at this pretty heavily. And Conor McGregor, from day one, from when we were showing Cage Warriors on Fight Network, the guy was under the microscope, under pressure. Everything was high expectations. He's dealt with almost exclusively that through his career and always performed well with it. And Jose Aldo has never been exposed to this ever on this level. Doesn't mean he won't perform well, but we don't know.
Let's chat about Phil Davis, who his contract expired after the loss to Ryan Bader. Bellator made him an offer. The UFC had the right to match it. They said, no, you go ahead and sign with Bellator. In terms of the UFC, I don't know how big of a loss this is. I don't think they ever viewed Phil Davis, at least over the past 2 years, as a guy that was going to get to that championship level. But he's someone dangerous enough that will be knocking off contenders in a relatively thin division. I mean, it's not blossoming with tons of contenders out there. And Phil Davis is someone that can beat a lot of guys, but is not going to take that next step up there. So I don't know if this was necessarily a huge loss for the UFC, sending Phil Davis off.
Yeah, I think you look at Phil Davis' style, and I don't really think it translates for the fans. Fans really want to see action-packed fights, and Phil's a smart fighter, an athletic guy who uses those physical attributes to get victories. What is strange is I think he's 13-3 in mixed martial arts, with wins over Lyoto Machida and Little Nogueira. His losses are to Rashad Evans, who was the former 205-pound champion,
Anthony Johnson,
and Anthony Rumble Johnson. So it's and who's challenging for the light heavyweight championship, and the split decision loss to Ryan Bader in his last fight. So it's very strange that you release a guy who has name value and has those big victories, but you
Well,
know,
not necessarily a release, but we don't know what the Bellator
Sure.
offer was. They might have said, "Whoa, that's a lot more than we believe his market value is. We're gonna pass on this." It's not like they just completely wiped their
I
hands.
get
of it.
that,
I'm
but
sure
if-
they looked at the offer
Sure.
and said, "We're not going to invest that."
But for example, look at the 170-pound division. A guy like Thiago Alves, his contract expires. I have a hard time believing that UFC would allow him to go to Bellator because of his style. And a guy like Thiago Alves is perfect for your Fox type shows. He brings a certain type of intensity and a fan-friendly style.
Well, you're talking about two different
things.
styles. I don't know if
That's
Phil
what it comes-
Davis, you see
that's
him
what-
on the marquee
exactly.
and you think the same thing you do of a Thiago Alves,
No, you don't.
Carlos Condit
Yeah,
style
right.
fight.
Well, if Phil did get more than the UFC sees that he's worth, then good for Phil.
Yeah,
then this
excellent.
is a great deal for Phil. The guy is making a living in a very dangerous sport. If somebody's going to pay him more money to do that thing, and arguably he's got lower level competition, which could make it less dangerous, less physically demanding for him, I think he matches up pretty well with King Mo as opposed to Anthony Johnson. So good for you, Phil. I think it's a great deal for you. And for the UFC, hey, man, we're in the middle of being accused of being a monopoly. We can't keep guys like this. Other people are taking
But
them
will
from
you
us.
tune into the Bellator product knowing that Phil Davis is going to be on the card? You know, the King Mo fight, sure, I think a lot of hardcore fans will watch that. But if it's Phil Davis
Then
versus...
Tito?
Okay, sure, that fight too.
Yeah.
I think there are probably a lot of good fights for Bellator. But is Phil Davis one of those fighters that will allow you to tune into the Bellator product?
For me personally, yes, because there aren't that many guys who are that good at that particular game, and I like to study that game. I enjoy that game, and I like Phil Davis.
All right. Well, there you go. Phil Davis off to Bellator. We'll find out when his first fight with the promotion will be. For Robin Black, John Ramsey, and I'm John Pollock. Stay tuned for more Fight News Now Extra. It's coming up now.